Do you know what Eddie Hearn, Oscar De La Hoya, and Bob Arum have in common? They all hate Dana White.
Who gives a shit with White? He's a piece of crap.
But you have these TKO scumbags.
It's over before it's even started. I mean, how loud do you want to talk?
Since the beginning of Dana White's UFC, boxing promoters never liked Dana, and it was for a simple reason. He was taking their money.
Guys rolling around like homosexuals on the ground. I mean, it is not a sport that shows great talent. The guys who throw punches can't throw a punch to save their ass. When the punches land, the guys have no chins. These are not like boxers.
His battles with boxing promoters were always fought from island to island, UFC on one side, boxing on the other.
Those guys, in my opinion, won't be able to lace my boots in boxing promotion. Now, as a business, as an organization, as UFC, unbelievable. But this is different.
We're in different sports.
Right.
He does his thing, I do my thing.
But this year, everything changes because Dana White is entering the boxing world, going head-to-head with his longtime rivals. And guess who doesn't like that idea? Boxing promoters.
Unless he's willing to change the structure for MMA fighters and raise them considerably, he shouldn't think about going into boxing.
So who will eventually draw the straw, Dana White or the boxing promoters? That remains to be seen. When the UFC started rising in the early 2000s, it meant one thing. Boxing was about to lose a massive chunk of its audience, and the people who were making millions from that audience didn't like it.
For me, MMA is garbage and junk. That's how I feel, and I would think that the majority of people in my generation would feel the same.
The first one to fire shots was Bob Arum, Top Rank's founder since 1966. Bob represents boxing's old, stubborn establishment. The man is so old, he used to promote Muhammad Ali fights, and somehow, at 94 years old, he's still running the show.
2 days later, I'm watching a fight. Bob Arum is in Saudi Arabia, ringside, at a boxing event. 2 days later, he's in London at a press conference. He's 94 years old. I hate him, but you gotta respect it, right?
For him, Dana White's UFC model, where one promoter controls the entire sport, was either disgusting or just an excuse to keep criticizing the competition.
UFC fighters get paid nothing. Nothing. Boxers get paid lots of money. Manny Pacquiao will get over $20 million for this fight. UFC fighters, all of them, can go 6 months without all of them making anything like $20 million. It's a different model. UFC fighters, because the UFC is a monopoly, get stiff. They don't get paid purses like boxers do.
But Dana White didn't stay quiet. He immediately fired back at Bob Arum.
Basically, he told us, like, UFC, it's a monopoly, and your fighters don't get paid shit. What do you have to respond about that?
Yeah, the UFC is a monopoly. Back when Bob Arum, when we bought this thing, you know what Bob Arum was saying? This is the dumbest idea ever. The UFC will never work. People don't want to see guys rolling around in their underwear. The Fertittas are idiots. They're going to lose oodles of money. Now it's a monopoly? All of a sudden it's a monopoly, huh? Bob talks out both sides of his neck. Bob's a moron. You go to a Top Rank fight now, they're copying everything we do, right? Now Bob Arum is also the guy who you know, he's out there crying antitrust, antitrust. Bob Arum, go back and look through the records in an interview that he did. He was laughing at the Fertittas for investing in this company. He was laughing at them, basically saying, they're idiots, they're losing oodles and oodles of money. Now you're crying antitrust, Bob? Bob, you weren't smart enough to do this. You weren't smart enough to do what we did to buy a company like this and basically change the fight industry forever. And now you're crying antitrust? You guys sound like a bunch of crybabies.
Over the years, their relationship never changed. They kept taking shots at each other every chance they got.
You got MMA, right? Just sold for billions of dollars. Good luck to them. And for some reason, they can buy off lobbyists so they're not subject to the Muhammad Ali Act like promoters are in boxing. Just saying.
This is the guy that was laughing at us and talking about what morons the Fertittas were for getting involved in this thing and how much money they were going to lose. And nobody wants to see a bunch of men rolling around in their underwear, right? These are the things that this guy said 10 years ago. Now he's out there crying, this is a monopoly, and they don't know that. You know what I mean? He talks out both sides of his neck. I can't stand Bob Arum. Bob wasn't smart enough to do this 50 years ago. If he was smart enough, he'd have done this 50 years ago and he'd have the same business model we have. But he's a greedy pig.
In 2017, Dana White made his first big move into the boxing world, the crossover that would shake both sports.
Does this mic work? Well then, fuck that mic!
Conor McGregor versus Floyd Mayweather.
I'm 40, but I look 20. And you act 10.
To the UFC, it was history in the making, but to boxing promoters like Bob Arum, it was blasphemy.
Have your opinions changed on the actual fight happening, and do you feel that it will probably happen because of the amount of money that can be made?
Well, I ask you a question. Would you put any money into a card that matches an extremely good professional boxer, if not the best in Mayweather, fighting against the guy who's never had one professional boxing match? It's lunacy. It's ridiculous. Even the commission allowing it is ridiculous.
Bob called the fight a circus, saying it insulted real boxing. But Dana didn't care. He saw numbers, spectacle, and global attention.
What I would like to clarify is all the bullshit about the 80-20 split. Jeff Mayweather? Come on, Jeff. Me and Jeff go way back. Jeff, are you the spokesman now for fucking Team Mayweather? And Bob Arum, you piece of shit? Fuck you too.
In this negotiation, it just showed me what an absolute asshole Bob Arum is, which I already knew anyway. So how that guy couldn't get that fight done with Pacquiao, with the guys that I dealt with for this deal, it was one of the easiest deals I've ever done.
But Bob Arum wasn't the only boxing promoter hating on the Conor Floyd fight.
McGregor to go inside a boxing ring where he has no experience whatsoever. He's never laced up a glove. And this is no knock on the UFC. The UFC, I think, is amazing and it's great. But I have an opportunity here now, today, to put on the best fights like I'm doing with Canelo and Triple G and bring boxing back to its glory days. And then you have this, which I call a circus. I just don't think it's fair for the sport of boxing.
Oscar De La Hoya, the 6th Division champ turned Golden Boy Promotions CEO, was once an early UFC ally.
Listen, Oscar De La Hoya and I have had a good relationship for a long time. If you look throughout the past, including the Canelo Chavez fight, I've been very supportive of every event that he does, and I've always liked Oscar. Bob Arum and I don't get along. If Bob Arum and I had the 2 last fighters on earth, I wouldn't make a fight with that scumbag.
But the McGregor-Mayweather fight changed everything.
He's talking about money grabs. Canelo Chavez, you know what I mean? You're going to put on a fight like that and then call McGregor-Mayweather a money grab when you were trying to make that fight 4 months ago, right? It's crazy. I mean, what is this guy doing? What's his deal? That's what I said. I'm basically saying to him, what's up? Why would you say something like that?
Even though Oscar and Dana were going at each other, it was still under control. But just 3 days before the fight, Oscar went completely off on Twitter, saying that both Conor and Floyd were disrespecting boxing. Dana White immediately fired back, asking, "Is this guy snorting coke and drinking booze again?"
Cocaine isn't cheap. It's expensive. Gotta make money.
But the Conor Floyd fight wasn't the last chapter, because just a year later, Oscar decided to step into MMA, with Chuck Liddell versus Tito Ortiz as the first event, 2 UFC legends way past their prime.
I heard last week the cokehead, Oscar De La Weirdo, is talking shit that I don't have any place to tell guys when to retire. The reality is that Chuck Liddell retired when he should have retired. 8-9 years ago, however long it was. And Chuck Liddell's almost 50 years old and has no business fighting anymore. And the fact that the state of California even let that fight happen is disgusting. Disgusting. Anybody who claims to be a friend of Chuck Liddell and was anywhere near this fight is full of shit. They're not a friend of Chuck Liddell.
Dana White, the boss for the UFC.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have too many nice things to say about you, Oscar.
Well, but first of all, what I said about, not about him personally, just about the business, about how fighters are just coming up to me and saying, look, we don't get paid enough. UFC just sold for $4 billion. You know, we're here struggling, trying to make ends meet. You know, I'm fighting for a world title fight where this fight does 1 million homes and I only get paid $50,000. Look, I'm not attacking his persona. I'm not attacking him personally. I'm getting to a point where I was gonna do one event, okay? Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell, okay? I gave Tito Ortiz and Chuck Liddell the opportunity because Dana White doesn't pay him enough. Why in the hell is Chuck Liddell still fighting at this age? Because Dana White doesn't pay him enough, that's why. So I have to come in and give him his biggest payday that he's ever made.
First of all, it's one thing to sit around with your friends and lie. It's another thing to go on ESPN and lie. So here are the facts. First of all, let's start with this. I have paid Chuck Liddell more money not to fight over the last 7 years than he paid him for that actual fight with Tito Ortiz. You know, from 2011 to 17, when I asked Chuck Liddell to retire, we paid him around $400,000 a year to not fight.
Because you felt it was a health risk to him?
Yes, so Chuck Liddell got knocked out 3 or 4 times in his last 5 fights, you know, which you couldn't knock Chuck Liddell out with a crowbar in his prime. Number 2, he takes care of the fighters better than we do. So total athlete compensation for Oscar's event was $580,000, right? $450,000 of that went to Chuck and Tito, right? So then the rest of the card, you exclude the main event and the co-main event, the rest of his card made $95,000, okay? Now, if you take the UFC, year to date, our fighters make $1.2 million on the undercard, okay? Lie number 2.
After the Golden Boy MMA disaster, the war between Dana and Oscar just kept getting uglier. In 2021, they were still throwing shots at each other. Oscar kept criticizing UFC fighter pay, claiming Dana was robbing his athletes, while Dana fired back calling him a liar, a drug addict, and a scumbag.
He is a lying, two-faced, hypocritical sack of shit. And I hate him so much that I love to prove that he's a lying, hypocritical, two-faced piece of shit.
A year later, after everything they went through, De La Hoya tried to end the beef with Dana White. He apologized publicly and said he wanted to work with him.
You know, there were some exchanges going back and forth, me and Dana, which I apologized to him 1,000%. I mean, I think that there's still a lot of business to be done between me and Dana in the future. You know, I know that he was trying to cross over here to boxing. I don't think it's been successful. I don't think he's really pushed it that much. But if he ever wants to talk and sit down and, I mean, imagine merging our 2 powerhouses together and creating something together. I mean, it would be pretty unique.
But Dana didn't buy it. He said he appreciated the apology, but there's no way in hell that they could ever be friends again.
I feel like De La Hoya's apology was sincere, but there's no way that he and I can ever be friends again. You know, he and I were actually friends. I used to go to his fights. I used to watch his fights. I used to promote his fights. That guy did way too much damage for us to ever be friends again. I appreciate his apology. Get it. We're cool, but we're never going to be that cool.
Although they didn't become friends again, it was nice to see 2 old rivals bury the hatchet and try to improve this beautiful sport of ours. Lol.
I don't even have to say anything about a guy who publicly slapped his own wife.
You're the Fertitta's errand boy.
And whose own mother wrote a book about what a terrible person her son is. And everyone thinks you're a piece of shit.
New boxing venture that the wife beater Dana White has started.
So Dana, fuck you.
That was enough. Oscar decided to break the peace and went all in on Dana White whenever he could, especially when TKO Boxing was announced.
You can't run a boxing organization when you don't have any fighters. And right now, TKO and Dana have 0 fighters. Dana already tried several times to get into the boxing space. Remember Zuffa, which never even got off the ground? When Dana doesn't have the funding and the business brains already in place, like the Fertittas or Turkey, He always fails. How about the Ultimate Surfer? Or the Power Snap? Or the big question, will I work with Dana in the future if he's in the boxing? Sure, because 80% of the folks I deal with in boxing are scumbags anyway.
Dana's beef with boxing promoters will probably last forever, but it can be divided by generations. First, it was Bob Arum. Then came the second generation with Oscar De La Hoya. And now, a new era begins.
Well, it's fascinating. Eddie Hearn all of a sudden is acting like a fucking lunatic. He sounds like he's reading a WWE script. When you hear somebody like Eddie talk, it reminds me of a career politician. He's running for election now, and he's like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do that, and we're going to do this. Where were you the last fucking 20 years? You didn't do shit. Somebody is writing him a WWE script, and he just sounds fucking ridiculous. You're not going to do jack shit.
You guys, I think he said someone's telling him to read from a WWE script. Number one, I've never read a fucking script in my life. And number two, no one tells me what to say. But I saw that interview, I was like, it's over. It's over before it's even started. I mean, how loud do you want to talk?
Same as Oscar De La Hoya, Eddie Hearn was once a good friend of Dana White.
Listen, I like Eddie Hearn very much. Eddie Hearn was at the Sphere fight. He came early before the fight started. I have a great relationship with him.
I'm a massive Dana White fan. I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but I have massive respect for what the UFC have done. In fact, I'll be honest, a lot of the things that we do are based around the success and the things that the UFC have done.
I would probably be working with a lot of people. I'm sure you can assume the people that I would not be working with. I don't think that's, you have to be a fucking genius to figure that one out. But yeah, I like Eddie Hearn a lot and would love to work with Eddie Hearn.
But I'll tell you what, for all the people that criticise Dana and say, you know, the fighters are badly paid, etc., etc., every fighter that won in that cage jumped over and ran round to Dana to hug him.
For sure.
And I thought, wow, it can't be that bad.
But as soon as Dana White stepped into boxing, Eddie Hearn suddenly changed his opinions.
What time does the UFC fighter go, hang on a minute, how much money is in the pot here? You kind of need me, don't you? I mean, I'm the talent. Without me, do you even have a show? Yeah, maybe you can put someone else on. But I've just sold this arena out. I'm just racking you up 400,000 or 500,000 pay-per-view buys. And this conversation probably isn't making me that popular, but that's the truth of the situation. The UFC guys are fighting without any understanding of how much revenue's in the pot. In that model where it's a league or it's a contender series and the guys are getting 50 if you win this fight and 100 and then 200, it's peanuts. How much are they getting from Paramount? You know, if it's multi-million dollars per show for the rights fee, which it probably will be, the profit is unbelievable.
Eddie Hearn turned his back on White so hard that he publicly called on fans to boycott TKO boxing.
And they can do the new bell, they can do the league, they can change the shape of the ring, they can change the Ali Act. We're going the other way. We're going on the greatness of boxing, the traditional side of boxing. The big fights, the unification, the governing bodies, letting fighters chase legacy and wear the belts that their heroes wore before them. That's what we're doing. And I'm saying to boxing fans, oi, come with me, get on my side, because I love boxing, we love boxing, and let's smash these boys out of the park. Bosh!
It's obvious that boxing promoters aren't welcoming Dana White with open arms, especially because he's going directly against them and trying to do everything they don't.
My model's way different. Turkey has things that he's obligated to over the next 18 months. I want to break the sport down and build it from the ground up like we did the UFC.
There aren't many things boxing promoters can agree on, but one thing Eddie Hearn, Bob Arum, and Oscar De La Hoya all agree on is that Dana White will fail in boxing.
And they've got a bigger problem because if they want to play in the big boy leagues of boxing, which I think they will at times, they're going to have to pay the fighters purses that, quite frankly, commercially, as we all know, because we all do it, are the wrong number for the fight. But you're going to have a situation where a boxer is making 3 or 4 times more than the main event on the UFC card, and the revenue is more for the UFC card than it is for the boxing. Do you know what I mean? And they can't afford for the talent to see the numbers.
Well, I think he has a real problem. Real problem. Because it'll become obvious to those fighters who are mixed martial arts that they get so much less than boxers get that he's going to start a revolution, if not a lawsuit.
The fact that a new entity is coming into boxing and already wants to change a bill that has been in place for decades that protects fighters, to me, is shady. I mind the shiesty part of it. I mind them trying to screw fighters over, but I don't mind them coming in because I don't really see it as competition. The fans are not gonna watch real boxing. And real boxing is the best talent that's developed fighting the very best talent. They're never gonna see that because they're gonna eliminate each other in their first fight, second fight, and guess what? If you don't win the second fight, you're gonna be shelved, just like the UFC does with their fighters.
2026 is waiting for us, and we'll see. Will Dana White actually succeed at what he's been planning? Will he take over boxing the same way he took over MMA? Or will TKO boxing end up just like Power Slap? Only time will tell.